Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 horror thriller Nix, a film that is co-written and directed by Anthony C. Ferrante, and it stars James Zimbardi, the legendary Dee Wallace, Michael Paré, Angie Tidora Dick, and Skylar Caleb. Now the film focuses on a family. Initially we see the family in the past. We see a mother, a husband and wife, and 3 children, 2 brothers and a sister. They head off camping at this location. The daughter goes missing and essentially kind of dies in a lake. There is some kind of supernatural event that happens around the lake. There's some kind of creature almost. It doesn't really make it clear what has happened, but it kind of jumps to the present now. And the 2 brothers were all grown up. The mother is now played by Dee Wallace, and she's still suffering from the loss, not only of her on that day of her daughter, but also her husband that also died on that day. So the family is still grieving, or she certainly is. Now, one of the brothers, Jack, played by James Zimbardi, is trying to move on with his life, but he essentially is like the caregiver for his brother's daughter. Lucas, who is quite disturbed himself, and obviously has to do an awful lot looking after his mother, played by Dee Wallace. Things start to get a little bit creepy, and this entity or creature called Nix keeps appearing or making an appearance and torturing certain members of the family. And it all kind of comes full circle by the end and all ties into the death of certain members of the family. Right. What are my thoughts on Nix? It's quite a difficult film to describe because there's a lot going on in this film. You could argue too much. The film, I think, what it really has going for it here is a couple of things. It's got some really good production values. It's definitely well directed. There's some good writing going on, even though it gets quite convoluted. And I thought the performances by everybody was excellent. Dee Wallace is a veteran actress now, and she's appeared in numerous horror films over the years, and she's become a screen queen. And she's great here as this absolutely tortured mother, Donna, who can't accept the loss of her 8-year-old daughter all them years ago. But I think everybody else in this film is really good as well. James Zimbardi, who plays her son, the most stable son, is trying very hard to understand what's going on and be very, very supportive, and he kind of gets drawn into it all late on into the film. So you can see his decline as the film goes on, and it's quite a layered performance. And everybody else is fine. Even the child actors are fine as well. Michael Paré, as I've mentioned, is in the film. He plays Dee Wallace's brother. I think he's some kind of therapist in the film, but he's not really in it a lot, and he doesn't add an awful lot to the film. And that's not to say he's poor in the film, because I don't think he is. He just doesn't add a lot to the film. And the film, I think, kind of loses its traction about just over halfway through. I was quite compelled up to that point, because I was intrigued and interested as to... I was on board with this family's torture and tragedy. And they were portrayed well, so I kind of had some empathy for these characters. And then it just it's one of those films where things start happening, you kind of thinking, have I missed something? I'm sure I was watching it closely. But you think you're missing something. And it doesn't explain itself particularly well. There's a death, and they go out to kind of spread some ashes at the location where the daughter went missing all them years ago. And you just kind of think, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would you sprinkle some ashes there? It's almost like tempting fate. Guess what? It kind of does tempt fate, and it all goes pear-shaped again. So there's a lot of decisions that don't make a lot of sense here. There's this relationship between this Jack character and this young girl, Zoe, I believe it is, who is his nephew or niece, whatever. He's her uncle, and he's like the father figure. And they just don't explore that enough either, because her mother's like obviously some kind of drug addict or something like that. They don't explore that enough. So the most interesting aspects of the film they don't explore enough, and the supernatural aspects of the film they don't explain well enough for me. By the end, you're not sure what message it's trying to get across. Is this entity real? Is it feeding on the despair of this family? What is this entity? Is it a demonic entity? Is it something else? You don't get any explanations, and so you're kind of left by the end thinking, well, what's that's going on? Is this a film about mental health? What's it trying to portray? And it doesn't kind of lay its hat on any aspect of it. So you're kind of left wondering at the end what the last half hour or so, what was it you've just watched? Because it didn't make an awful lot of sense to me, which I think is a real shame, because I do think there were an awful lot of plus points in this film I think that could have pushed through. I think if they'd have made it a little bit clearer and not just so convoluted by the end, I think they would have had a better film on the hand. Now, I do think it's worth checking out if any of this sounds interesting to you. There is a good film in here somewhere. I just think some of the ideas just didn't necessarily work as well as they should have done. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, and I do think there was potential for a better film here. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this I hope you enjoyed this review. I will, of course, be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.